Hi guys, Josh Eng here. Here's the video that I promised you guys, how to do land use after the MCO. Okay, first thing you look at the big picture, the macro model. You got to identify the problems and then you have to come up with the solutions. Yeah. Okay, what are the problems? Everybody knows that the property market will go down on the average 2 to 3 years. Secondly, banks will be very selective in lending, okay? And then there will be in a shift in what are the sectors that the banks are most willing to lend to. Okay, all the gurus out there are telling you guys that it's a good time to invest, good time to buy. Problem is, everybody knows what is a good buy. But for those astute investors and those veteran buyers, they are always not looking for good buy, but they are looking for value buy. There's a difference, yeah, between a good buy and a value buy. Okay, what's the solution? If you are going to do land deal successfully post MCO, first you need to create a value buy. Okay, you structure the deal in a creative manner, because good buy means you just get a discount 10%, 20%, no? So even everybody knows how to do a good buy, you see, but the problem is we need to create a value buy. And what's a value buy? A value buy is whereby the deal is structured in such a way that there is minimum earnest deposit and there is minimum balance of the down payment upon signing the SPA. Okay, the idea is to allow the buyer to lock up the price of the land at current pandemic price. Yes, the keyword here is to lock it up now at the present price. That is number one. The second element of a value buy is when the completion date is stretched between 2 to 5 years. This will then allow the buyer to ride along the wave, ride along the upside curve, ride along when the property market is expected to be better. Yeah, so indirectly it's just like going to the mama store and then buying a glass of teh tarik, you know, when the higher he tarik your teh, the longer he tarik the teh, then there'll be more foams and bubble and you find that your teh tarik tastes better. Isn't that correct? So in the same manner, for any value buy, you go for minimum down payment to lock it up at the current price, and then you structure the balance towards the tail end, or as what you call longer as possible, so that they can ride along the wave. Okay, so here's what you need to do. You need to think and act like a surgeon, a specialist surgeon in the hospital. Okay, you got to see the deal transaction in 4 parts. Part 1, the earnest deposit and the balance on the SPA. Part 2, the CPs or conditions precedent. Part 3, the timeline for completion date. And part 4, the mode of payment. Okay, first thing is you need to identify the owner's immediate needs. What do you mean by immediate needs? Okay, we'll come to that later. The standard earnest deposit is 2% and balance 8% upon signing. But if you know his immediate needs, you can then structure it. You can even pay 1%, 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, or even just a lump sum of 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 ringgit. Yeah, but you need to find out his immediate needs. So what is this thing called immediate needs? It is what the owner's current exposure to the bank is, so that you can see how deep he is sinking into the hole. At what stage the banks are pressing him for the repayment. Yeah, usually lawyers will send first demand letter, second demand letter, and third demand letter. So you must know at what stage the situation is right now. Then you must know the redemption sum. How much is he owing to the bank? How much he can get back? How much if you structure the deal, the net amount that he can take back. Now, if you know how much he needs immediately to pay up the banks to prevent him from entering the first round of NPL, then you will have the upper hand in structuring a deal that is win-win for both parties. Okay. Now, most agents think that you must pay 10% on signing SPA. If you still have that thought, then it's best that you go change your lawyer, because there is nothing in the law of contract that says you got to pay 10% upon signing. Yeah, the reason is because the lawyer wants it to be easy and convenient, so that the accounts clerk can then take the calculator and count the penalty interest easily. It's based on a round number of 90%. Yeah. Even Tony Fernandez, he bought AirAsia just by paying 1 ringgit and then taking over the existing debt, if I'm not mistaken, about 42 million. Yeah. So this is how deals are structured. That is part 1. Okay. You must know the immediate needs. You know the immediate needs. Say for example, he is now owing the bank, he wants to sell at 50 million, but he's owing the bank 20 million. Okay. If he don't pay the bank by end of next month, then the bank going to foreclose him. Okay. Now 50 million, 10% is only 5 million. But now he needs 20 million immediately. So what you can do, you can structure the deal upon signing 10, instead of 10%, they pay 20M upon signing the deal. And then the balance 30 million, you can then stagger it up to the max of the timeline. Okay. Now part 2, that's where the CPs come into the picture, and these are the conditions precedent. Usually when you buy normal property, house, condo or shops, they will include one clause which says subject to 10% loan approval. Okay. Now for land, you can then pack it to conversion, to vacant possession, to the KM or the DO, the building plan approval, and also the APDL. Yeah. Okay. Now we go to the next slide. Now what happens is that when you pack it to the various CPs here, the conditions here, you will add a percentage. Upon conversion, you pay another 10%. Upon KMDO, you pay another, say, 10, 15, 20%. Upon building plan, you pay another, say, 20, 30%. APDL allow you to launch, and then you pay another certain percentage. Now, what happens is that you can always play around with the percentages here. There is no fixed rule as to how many percent you got to pay. Okay. Now the important thing is the timeline between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's the timeline between each? For example, you know that from the beginning of signing, they give you a PA to apply for the KM or DO. Now this will take usually on the average about 5 months. 5 months you can get it out. So the old way, I repeat, the old way of doing it is they will what they call have the clause which says within, say, 6 months from the date of signing the SPA, you must get the DO, whichever is earlier. So if you get the DO in 4 months, you got to pay that percentage. But if you get the deal, the deal comes out in 6 months, you still got to pay it earlier on, because it is already stated whichever is earlier. So for the new strategy now is we change the clause wordings to whichever is later. Instead of whichever is earlier, we change it to later. So later means the buyer can now buy more time to stretch the deal on a longer timeline. Later and earlier. So now you change it to whichever is later. Okay, this will give more what you call bargaining power to your buyer. Okay, now part 3, the completion date. Structure it based on the CP's timeline. Okay, usually timeline we will structure it to the maximum 2 to 5 years depending on your deal size. Objective is very simple. The buyer wants to buy low with minimum, I repeat, minimum down payment, and to ride along for maximum upside. So for them to ride along, it will be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever happens, whether the vaccine is found for the COVID or not. So the idea is to buy low, stretch it as far as possible, so that when the market comes back, your buyer will be at the what they call maximum gains stage. Okay, now we go to part 4, the mode of payment. Now, who says that it must be 100% in cash? There is no such thing, no law which says you got to pay 100% in cash. So I would say for the new norm, post-COVID, KFC combo will be very important, whereby you pay in cash and also units. These units can be existing units from the buyer's existing project, or units from the project to be developed from this piece of land. Okay, the other thing will be the joint venture. Joint venture will be for owners who are not that cash tight but wants to reduce their risk exposure. Okay, now I think there are some joint ventures going on in the market right now. So if you can solve the owner's immediate needs, every deal I would say is negotiable and can be structured. The keyword here is the immediate needs. What does the owner needs immediately, so that they can satisfy the bank's what you call payment, the immediate payment that they need to make to the bank, so that the banks will not come after them. If you can solve this, you can find out the immediate needs, you can solve it for the owner, then the owner will be very thankful. Okay, owner only wants immediate needs to pay the bank now. They want the breathing space. What happens next, they are not that worried. As long as the banks don't come after them, they don't mind if the balance of payment is stretched over 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or even 5 years. Okay, this is the practical way. It's a win-win for both parties. The owner can escape from the banks, will not be thrown into bankruptcy. The buyer get a good value buy. I repeat, value buy. And the agents also get to do a deal. It's a win-win structure for everybody. Okay, I can tell you that this type of structuring is practical. I have done it many times before, during 1997 and during the 2008 crisis. So for this coming pandemic crisis, you guys please understand this type of deal structuring. It is not normal, but it is very creative, very ingenious. It solves the problems of both the owner as well as the buyer. For instance, the 50 million deal. The buyer wants to buy, but the bank's not willing to finance at this current moment. Banks are not willing to finance property deals at this current moment. So if you can stretch the deal to 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, when the market recovers and when financing is available, then you have certainly done the deal. No problem on that. Okay guys, that's all for this video. I'm only allowed 15 minutes to use this software. Okay, all the best to you guys. Thank you. Bye bye.